Welcome to the Silent Thinking Podcast, a space to slow down, breathe, and reconnect. Today I'm reading from When the Psychology Professor Met the Minister by Dave Roberts and Patty Furino. Just listen and let the stillness support you. Chapter 7. Honor your past as your teacher. After bearing witness to Patty's experience in Virginia, I now understood spirit can reveal what we need to know through entities not encountered during their physical existence on Earth. Any greater revelations about life, death, or science did not have to come merely through encounters with my daughter. I now had access to a community of souls, all with their unique knowledge and gifts that could help me in my quest for great awareness. We are capable of accessing them through someone with deep awareness like Patty or on our own. I personally discovered through prayer, meditation, yoga, and exercise, we can create an altered state of awareness, allowing us access to the divine source of knowledge. When I quiet my mind and embrace any of these or other practices, I found I was part of something greater than myself. With guidance and support, we are all capable of making our own unique connection if we believe that we can and are receptive to what follows. Our evening topics continue to expand. We had discussions about the world's religions, holistic healing practices, Reiki, shamanic visioning, past life regression, and many other spiritual teachings. We also discussed various scientific concepts that integrate with the spiritual point of view. I began to understand there are many different practices to help us find clarity and peace within our human existence. The information Patty shared during our marathon talks continued to come through her at lightning speed. On one particular evening, Patty and I had a fascinating discussion about Akashic Records. The Akashic Records, also known as the Book of Life, or God's Book of Remembrance, can be equated to the universe's supercomputer system, or perhaps what today would be labeled cloud computing. It is the central storehouse of all information for every individual who has ever lived upon the earth. These records contain our every thought, deed, word, feeling, and intent. They have a tremendous influence on our present-day lives, our relationships, our feelings, our belief systems, and the potential realities we draw towards us. Patty began to share information she saw from my Akashic records. She was aware we knew each other before this lifetime, and in fact we were very close friends. She saw me as a young boy among chariots, as a native elder, and as a high-ranking bank executive. The minister foresaw that my writing skills would allow my voice to be heard in academia, while in the process helping others through their challenges. I was in awe. Pat could see my past, present, and future simultaneously, with such detail and clarity. I asked for Patty's opinion about Susan Broback, a shamanic holistic practitioner, unsure if I should consider her as a healer, teacher. Pat expressed the benefits of having more than one teacher. Different perspectives offer the opportunity to further develop our own beliefs and expand our understanding of other worldviews. This will help us evolve into a more compassionate society. I had 2 sessions with Susan in February and March of 2011, after which I expressed to Patty my uncertainty to continue meeting with her. I didn't experience a connection with Susan. Patty advised me to give it a little longer, simply explaining, "You will know. Look for a sign." Ultimately, I did go back, and then took time to sit with my feelings afterwards. When I walked into Susan's sacred space for my appointment, she immediately sensed I was having physical issues in a certain part of my body. At that moment, my doubts dissipated because she had no way of knowing I was in fact having health issues. Pat was right. That was my sign. I was now convinced Susan was destined to become one of my teachers in this new and quickly evolving chapter of my life. When I discussed my medical issue with Pat, her blunt response was, "This medical issue manifested because of your relationship with women." She went on to say, "In the past, you did your greatest growth and learning with women." She was absolutely right. I was raised in a household by 3 women: my mother, Sadie, my maternal grandmother, Bridget, and my maternal aunt, Rose. My mother, Sadie, was primary caregiver from my childhood into adulthood. She was a strikingly beautiful woman who, according to my grandmother, had no absence of suitors. She was not only beautiful, but deeply religious and spiritual. Her integrity and sense of morality were beyond approach. My mother met my father, Austin, in the early 1950s. He was a salesman from Baltimore, and she was a retail manager at a local clothing store in the small town of Utica, New York. They married in 1954, and I was born approximately 1 year later on June 30th, 1955. When I was 5 years old, my father left home, never to return. My mother did not remarry, which meant there was no consistent masculine presence in my life. To make matters worse, she was overprotective to a fault. I felt smothered. At 16 years old, I finally confronted her empathically, stating that my anger, resentment, and sadness was all due to her overprotective nature and the fact that she never remarried. During my sessions with Susan, childhood memories would consistently come up. One time, as I lay on her table, she revealed a vision of a 4-year-old child riding with his father in a chariot. She described how the chariot tipped over, crushing the boy. I became aware that Susan's vision of the child in the chariot was directly related to Patty's spiritual vision, seeing me among chariots, when reading my Akashic records. I could readily see there was an undeniable connection between past and present. Could it be that 4-year-old boy who died was me in a previous lifetime? Was the father driving the chariot my father in this lifetime? If so, could he have been married to the woman who was now my mother in this lifetime? Following a period of personal reflection, I believe this to be true. I now had a better understanding of my mother's fierce desire to protect me, since she failed to protect me in a previous lifetime. She was not going to risk losing me again, even if it meant angering or permanently alienating me. This led to a conversation with Pat about the true meaning of karma. I told Pat typically karma is viewed as an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. I always laughed at the perception, as I would be visualizing everyone blind and toothless. I asked Pat that she believed karma was relative to a soul's journey. Her believing karma is the soul's way of experiencing various perspectives when living a human life. We spoke at length of the anguish my mother must have felt due to her inability to protect her little boy. It was identical to the anguish I experienced following the death of my own daughter. Our talks led to many new levels of understanding about karma and helped me to acknowledge the unresolved issues with my mother 18 years after her death. Reviewing the soul contract between mother and son afforded me the peace and reconciliation I longed for. This experience validated what I read in Brian Weiss's book, Many Lives, Many Masters, about understanding our soul contracts and examining unresolved past life issues to achieve peace in our present lifetime. Sigmund Freud himself believed that events in our childhood have a strong impact throughout adulthood, influencing our personality, Integrating perspectives from Dr. Weiss and Dr. Freud gave context to my experience with two spiritual teachers, and in the process established a greater understanding of how ancestral healing took place in my life. Knowing about our past life relationship helped me to resolve the issues with my mother because I better understood the circumstances driving her actions. During subsequent conversations with Patty, she suggested I examine the relationship with my father. With Pat's encouragement, I shared and addressed some emotion related to my father's abandonment. One evening, she invited me to pray out loud and express my gratitude to those ancestors that contributed to my spiritual growth. I began by giving thanks to my mother and daughter. Patty began to feel and picture a spirit. She saw a man with his face buried in his hands. Pat believed that the man was my father. Through her, he communicated his remorse for leaving my mother and me, depriving him of the opportunity to watch me grow up. I remember replying, "Dad, there is no need to be sad. I understand why you had to leave." After much reflection and subsequent discussions with Pat, I embraced a new peaceful perspective about my father's actions. I came to believe that my father's act of abandonment was actually an act of love. He left the marriage knowing he would be a detriment to my mother and myself. In order for me to begin making peace with him, I would need to embrace the medicine of my good friend, Crow, who encourages to shape-shift that old reality and become your future self. Crow medicine helped me to ultimately embrace a transformed and peaceful perspective about my father's decision to leave and ultimately forgive him. After that evening, I thought my ancestral healing work with my father was complete, but the universe had different ideas. On April 6, 2015, our local Compassionate Friends chapter hosted an educational program for our families. Towards the end of the program, I received an email that would permanently alter my personal story. Here are the highlights of the email that I received. Dear Mr. Roberts, I saw one of your posts while doing research on my father's family, the Strahlers from Baltimore. First of all, please allow me to express my sincerest sorrow for the loss of your daughter. My prayers are with you and your family. I'm contacting you because I believe that I may be your first cousin, 3 times removed on your father's side. Reading of your father's abandonment and later death was heartbreaking. My father's father also abandoned his family, which is probably why I'm so compelled to fill in the voids. If your father, Austin, was from Baltimore and was the son of Mary, my father's great aunt, and Marion Austin Roberts, I may be able to share some family info with you if you're interested. Sincerely, Joanne Davis. I immediately contacted Joanne and told her I was interested in further communication with her. She had first-hand knowledge of information about my father's family that I never published in any of my previous blogs or articles. The first email I received included a narrative of our history. There were several in our family who were married more than once, including my paternal grandmother, Mary Strahler Roberts. Their lifestyle was nomadic, with a history of alcohol abuse, gambling, and other behavioral issues. As a human service professional specializing in addictions counseling, I encountered many individuals with these kind of challenges. More often than not, they came from family systems that operated under a set of rules that supported these types of behaviors. I now realize that my father's family was no different. Their history is inextricably woven into my DNA, and for me, explains in part why I was able to develop an almost immediate rapport with individuals who had substance use issues, many of whom came from challenging backgrounds. In order for my father to embrace the stability of a loving marriage, he would have to modify the rules that were a part of his family for generations. He was unable to do so because they were permanently ingrained. My dad let go what he loved deeply, my mother and me. His leaving taught me the true meaning of unconditional love, as well as the art of letting go. I was grateful that Joanne showed up in my life just when I opened the door to finding peace with my father. She was meant to find and read the article I wrote at the precise time that she did, and was destined to contact me at the exact time she did. It was all in alignment. It is intriguing to note Joanne's email arrived on April 6th, 2 days after my mother's birthday, and 2 days after Easter, a Christian holiday, which is a time associated with rebirth and renewal. It is also interesting that the article she read about my father is no longer available due to the website unexpectedly closing. Joanne's appearance in my life, plus the works I did with both Patty and Susan, was the culmination of a spiritual process that ultimately created new bonds with my father's family. We can't ignore the lessons of our past, which can teach and direct us in the present. Looking back at my life, every decision I made, personal, educational, and career-wise, contributed to my current life path. This is reminiscent of another one of my favorite wisdoms from The Afterlife of Billy Fingers by Annie Kagan. All roads ultimately lead to the same place, the present moment. To determine if your life has meaning, you don't have to wait until the end of it to review your past. Patty believes your birth date is a great opportunity to look back on your experiences and examine the ways you've grown in the past year. Insight can be the foundation for goals you set for yourself during the following year of your life. Patty and I want to share 4 suggestions allowing your past to be your teacher in the present. Commit to looking at your past as an integral part of your growth in the present, not as something to be ignored, feared, suppressed, or carried into the future. Honor the stories and gifts of your ancestors and give thanks for them. Keep a journal of the ongoing teachings you have discovered from your past. Decide how you can use them to change your present life experience for the better. Create a future that inspires you and others. Witness your past as an observer, not with judgment. Be gentle with yourself. The ancestral work that I engage in brought me to a greater understanding of my mother and father's roles in my life. It wasn't just the spiritual work that allowed me to achieve a sense of peace and wholeness. Patty pointed out that it was my willingness to engage in critical thinking. Critical thinking allowed me to embrace my father's leaving as an act of love, not abandonment. Critical thinking allowed me to understand that my mother's overprotectiveness was the completion of a contract that was not fulfilled when I died as a 4-year-old boy in a previous lifetime. Doing the deep spiritual work didn't change the fact my father abandoned me and my mother was overprotective. The work I did helped me to embrace a more sacred, peaceful perspective separate from their actions. I embraced peace because I was willing to forgive my father and mother for the decisions they made. The work was cathartic and necessary for me to continue on my personal road of self-discovery. Thank you for sharing this quiet moment with me. If this brought you peace, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, like the video, and share it with someone who might need a little stillness too. Until next time, keep listening inwards.